planet. I have 3 opportunities here for interaction with each and every one of you. I have you right here on Instagram, also on YouTube Live, and for those of you on TikTok, thank you so much for being advocates and also joining my weekly interaction with you. That being said, hopefully you experience a very nice day wherever you are on the planet. Hello, Carols and Pics on IG. Waving to you. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you indeed. Oh, what a weekend. Forgive my demeanor. I'm a bit, how should I say, tired because it was crazy. The team and I had opportunity with the family to participate in 2 events this past weekend. Start off in Irwindale on Saturday for the Fuel Fest event, which is fantastic. And the Fuel Fest is this huge kind of Fast and Furious inspired event with actors from Fast and Furious. Cody Walker was there to be able to kind of make things go very nice and smoothly with his partner Chris. And Tyrese was there for the movies as well. And we had a special guest courtesy of the movie as well, being Vin Diesel. So that was really, really fun. And I brought the Odyssey, which is at the residence, not here. Brought that out, and that was really nice indeed. And it was a packed event, one of the most packed events I've ever been to. The Irwindale Speedway was completely full. And whether you're into EVs, JDM cars, European vehicles, you name it, it was there. It was a place to be. And it was a good time. Had the opportunity with Nadari on NADS, John Nadari, aka NADS, to do a little interaction about the future of mobility and racing and motorsports. And then we were graced with the presence of the president of SEMA, or CEO of SEMA. Michael was great. He was just a great guy and talked about all facets and what SEMA is doing for us as a scene, which is pretty exciting indeed. So yeah, it was good. It was a very good weekend at the Irwindale Speedway. And then following up the very next day, the family and I had opportunity to go to Long Beach Convention Center for the California inaugural for this year, Electrify Expo, which was great. So it was a place, if you are an EV enthusiast, EV curious, it was just everything electric, from scooters to skateboards to motorcycles to cars. It was just fantastic. It was really good. So it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, Make Great Motoring, good to see you as well this Tuesday. I'm just so tired from the past weekend, but we are good. So thank you so much for joining. And one thing I really want to talk about today was this weird discord that I've seen around the high performance scene when it comes to different means of propulsion. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Dayton Area Car Talk here says, BC, I hope you're doing well. What's your favorite classic car? Favorite classic car is pretty much what I'm building nowadays, the Porsche 935. I think that thing is amazing. We've had the opportunity to make it the street faring to some extent, but the look of the long tail 935 by Porsche with a slant nose is just my favorite. It's just something that I think is just absolutely beautiful no matter what angle you look at. On the racetrack, they dominated and continue to be a lot of fun at the historics. So for me, classic vehicle, that is my favorite. It's like a Porsche 911, but a lot more, which is exciting indeed. King Oluwale says, I would like to learn how to build. What do you want to build? Is it cars, engines, homes? Share exactly what you mean, King, and I will be more than happy to do that, 911 Deanies asked, what makes you choose number 42 for the Porsche? And I assume you're talking about the Porsche 935 K3V. And it's really interesting because a lot of people think it's paying homage to Jackie Robinson, who his number 42 as an African-American baseball player was quite unique and quite impactful. But believe it or not, it's because of my favorite movie, and a movie I love so much. And that movie is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that being said, the number 42 is the answer to everything. When the supercomputer was asked, who could answer everything and anything around the universe, and it was asked a question, and after lots of calculations, the number was 42. So that's it. There's another Easter egg above and beyond. Thank you so much, 911 Deani. There's another little Easter egg that's there. The K3V does have what I call the infinite improbability mode. For those of you who know about the movie, if you press that button to ship, it can turn you into a variety of things. You never know what you're going to turn into. It could be cartoon, you can turn into plants, you can turn into knitting wares. It could be anything, right? So I have the same mode on the car where there's a switch under my dash. And if you hit this switch, all, how should I say, all safety parameters are off, all fail safes are off. The car is almost like a crazy plaid mode that the K3V has. I almost crashed, even regen goes away. I almost crashed the first time I did it. It was pretty crazy. So when you do hit that switch, on the screen flashes infinite improbability mode, or infinite probability mode, I should say. And then you see the two mice from the movie on the screen. It's pretty cool. One day I'll probably do a video and show it to you guys. But I have little Easter eggs in the cars that we tend to build, and that's one of them as well. I had a great question here from TikTok, from Jason Rose. Says, BC, you should visit Puerto Rico this summer. We have a few events coming up, like Tuner Evo. I heard Puerto Rico is out of control when it comes to everything automotive. And as a matter of fact, we sell more D-series camshafts in this, in the area of Puerto Rico than anywhere else in the world, including the United States, which is crazy, right? And they're not buying the level 1 or level 2s. They're buying proper level 3.6 and level X's for street fairing, which is amazing. I did the same thing, but it's absolutely fantastic. So I love it. I love it indeed. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, Diecast Collector 27. That is a wagon right there next to it with the little turbo fans right there. So yeah, thank you so much for noticing. Okay, let's see here. What did I miss? Okay, nothing in particular. Just everyone saying hi and waving. Appreciate you guys. So I want to talk about Discord. And guys, maybe you can help chip in with this. I saw some of that at the Electrify Expo, which is shocking because it's full EVs, right? And I saw a lot of it also, both on and off stage at the Fuel Fest event. And there is this, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's this hatred for everything electric, right? It's really weird. And I don't understand why that's the case. It's really strange. And I was part of that faction, can I call it that, for quite a few years, where I felt that EVs were just rubbish and they were not for real performance guys. And they were people who didn't care anything about the environment. They were for individuals who didn't care about having fun with cars. And boy, was I wrong. And after building the pink and gray K3V, it changed my mind completely. And now I can appreciate all forms of propulsion, whether it's all motor, whether it's sport compact or V8 domestic, whether it's turbocharged or supercharged, and now EV have entered the arsenal. So I love all of them. They're really good, King Ola says because you don't have to buy gas or tune the engine, and that's where you're partially right and partially wrong. Yes, with EVs, you don't have to buy gasoline at all. You charge it using electricity, but they are tunable. So the one thing we do here with every performance EV is that we have a controller. In our case, our ECU of choice is the AEM VCU at a 200, 275, and you have full control of torque maps like you would when tuning a car. So yes, you can tune a vehicle to your heart's liking. You can have full torque at low RPM. You can manipulate it so it can act like a gas engine. You can make it very, very stable. You can have different modes. You can have the eco, sport, and normal mode. You can do all kinds of, you can tune it as much as you desire to as you would a petrol car. And it's there indeed, which is quite interesting, So there is this misnomer that you cannot, but you can. And I get it. For the individuals who have not had the opportunity to drive a performance EV, it is really a different world. And above and beyond that, using, let's say, a standard Nissan Leaf or a Model 3 as a litmus test for all EVs is not the right thing to do. So I see some people saying EVs suck, they're appliances, they are quiet. It's like you buying a bone stock Mitsubishi Colt or even a factory Toyota Yaris and saying, hey, all petrol cars are like this. And I'm sorry, but a factory Yaris is not very inspiring at all. And above and beyond that, a bone stock Mitsubishi Colt is not inspiring either. I even drove an SUV recently that was petrol-based, and it was not very awe-inspiring either. So think of comparing every petrol car to something that's stock. That's the same way that you compare a Model 3 to all EVs. It's just not the same. Sleeper versus Flash is saying it's because the power to charge is mainly created by coal, which defeats the purpose of the CO2 narrative. And that's also a misnomer as well. There's nuclear. I myself, at my own residence, I use solar. And if you want to compare that to petrol, let's say we're comparing apples to apples. Petrol is crude and not renewable. You do have to transport the petrol by ships, which also burn a lot more petroleum-based products. When they get here to the States, you have to, then carry the crude and have it refined, there is also an incentive there to consume more fuel, fossil fuels. And it's just, it doesn't make sense. And as for me, I can speak for myself. For many years, as I built all these cars, even this petrol car here that's next to me runs on alcohol because I don't feel good using regular petrol. And that being said, anyone who, Sleeperverse Flash, you and others who try and talk about charging and the narrative, we all use cell phones, we all use laptops, it doesn't make sense. If we compare mobility to mobility, are you telling me that you won't want to drive an EV because you feel that's bad for environment? Since when? Seriously, since when? The customers, I have customers who have no catalytic converters, who run rich, black smoke coming out of exhaust, the car smells, you can't even start up in a garage, and you're okay with that, but you're not okay with something with zero emissions. I don't quite follow. It doesn't make sense to me. I just see this weird hate. Now, if the narrative somehow is around how certain governmental entities are trying to force feed people to go EVs, I get that. I'm not about that either. I don't want the government to tell me what to drive or how to drive and when to drive. But when it comes to performance, sheer performance, me experiencing it, it's really changed my mind and it's amazing. And I don't get the hate without experiencing it. It's one thing if I experienced it and hated it because I just didn't like it because it wasn't fun, but it is quite amazing. It is a lot of fun indeed. Bonjour, Stephanization. Good seeing you, brother. Hopefully all is well with you. Anthony 88 is asking, what's the highest horsepower EV car you have? It would be the Mobi. That's about 650 horsepower. And the torque is north of 700 pound-foot. And the interesting thing about that is compared to my gasoline 900 horsepower one, the Mobi is quicker. So it's a faster vehicle and looks pretty cool, by the way. And I don't have to worry about, being that the Mobi is a 79, I don't have to worry about emissions or getting smog tested or rubbish. It's pretty good indeed, Nicholas Jackson from YouTube is saying, have you ever thought of entering the K3V into Pikes Peak hill climb 1 year? No, I have not. And one of the reasons why, Nicholas, that's my very first one. And the K3V has air-cooled batteries. And to do something that's very nice and intensive like Pikes Peak, I would like to use something that's more water-cooled, which leads me more towards the Mobi or other vehicles. So I have not. What I do want to do, and I kind of hinted into this earlier last week, I do want to build a new van and make one that's really exciting and EV-based and purposely built for hill climb. That would be just absolutely fantastic and something I like to do. So that being said, I like to be able to, purposely do that, indeed. So, oh, David, hello, David Little. Hopefully you're doing well, brother. I hope you're doing very good. And I will be in Florida very soon. And hopefully you are doing okay. I haven't seen you quite in Southern California quite a while, David. David Little is a good friend of mine. He used to be my bank manager, hardcore enthusiast. He's one of the individuals who tried to get me to get in a Tesla earlier and he gave me my first ride in a Model S and kind of plant those seeds around me being able to explore high performance EVs, which is really great indeed. So yeah, thank you so much for having the opportunity to be a positive influence in my life, and I appreciate you very, very, very much. CO2 narrative is a problem. The EV cars is a great alternative. Is a problem. The EV cars is a great, oh, I don't quite understand, Silverbuster. Could you kindly rephrase that? I'd like to be able to have some good discussions around that. Dapper Daver 710, good day to you as well. Hopefully things are well with you. Same with creating, hello, TSX Michael says, same with creating battery. I keep hearing that as well. It seems to be that Big Oil has done a good job in really perpetuating this myth around battery creation and so on and so forth, especially around cobalt, which I think is very, how should I say? It is a concept that is kind of hypocritical because, I mean, it's almost strange because when you refine crude oil and you have to desulfurize it to remove the sulfur from it because that causes oxides of sulfur and acid rain, cobalt is what's used extensively and it's been that way for many, many years. And then above and beyond that, battery technology continues to improve and it's less and less materials that are non-renewable. We're getting to solid state, which is great. The cool thing about batteries as well, as they get to end of life, they can be quite maximized in terms of refining. All these examples are given to me today doesn't still lead for someone to hate it. And if someone hates EVs because of batteries, we shouldn't have smartwatches, we shouldn't be using our phones, we shouldn't be using laptops. Most new petrol cars even come with lithium-ion batteries as their 12-volt system. Some are using 16-volt systems. It's really, we're being hypocrites by actually saying that. So I don't quite get that. Once again, I don't know if it's a bandwagon thing, a result not to change, or resistance to change. I want to hear firsthand from people who have driven performance gasoline cars, performance EVs, and saying, I hate this. Not hearsay, not regurgitating what you've heard from others, what you think. I need to know. I really want to know. I'm very curious indeed, you know? Sammy Valdez on TikTok is saying, is making all-wheel drive Honda with NASCAR, Curie 9-inch with pan and 4-link what? I don't quite understand. If that's a question or comment, you know? A dedicated dad is asking, is the Civic Welcome for sale? Not at this time, but in normal fashion, if someone makes a proper offer, they can have this all-wheel drive sequential gearbox wagon. So right now we don't have it for sale and we haven't had any offers yet, you know? Let's see here. I'm from Russia, says Shopik Gopuk, all the way in YouTube. Thank you so much for joining. No, I do not speak Russian, but I appreciate you being able to speak English and interacting with us. Appreciate it indeed. King Oluwale says, and what do you think about battery management systems of EVs? I think a lot of people have issues with that. Thermal runaway also. How do you manage thermal runaway? Very easy. It's almost like asking, for those who are not very familiar with how EVs and battery management works, it's like asking, how do you deal with your boost not running away and blowing up the engine every time you step on the throttle? There is boost management using controls, let's say, for example, from TurboSmart, and using an electronic boost controller to be able to waste things away. And if that fails, you have the opportunity to have a boost cut with your engine management solution. Similar thing happens with battery management. They're not all created equally, but I tend to use battery management systems from Eward Energy, known as Orion BMS2. It monitors every cell individually, and I have not had any issues whatsoever. It's when you don't have a BMS or you have an inadequate BMS that you have problems. Just like when you don't have boost control or an inadequate fail-safe for boost runaway, you can have the same problem. So what the battery management system does, it monitors each cell. In this case, in 400-volt systems, most of them hover around 96 cells, whether they're in series or parallel at the cell level. And then you monitor each one as you charge. Any battery cells that try to go above this peak ability to charge, which cause thermal runaway, is kept lower and equalized with lower cells. If you're charging a battery and your temperature starts rising, and it gets to a point where you think you may start having challenges, the BMS limits how much charging goes in the battery or shuts it off completely. If you're pulsing when driving your car and demanding a lot from the battery to where it wants to sag beneath the lower limit of the cells, the BMS will send a signal to the controller to not demand as much from it. It's also something that's come everywhere. It's very straightforward. So King Oluwale, if you've had problems, let me know. Maybe I can point you in the right direction, but I haven't. And most of my peers who know what they're doing have not had issues with thermal runaway or with BMSs either. It's pretty much a straightforward thing. It's like saying a majority of turbo cars have no boost cut and blow up your car because of excessive boost. That's not the case. It's only when people are careless that bad things happen. Sven, hi, 1975. I'm great. How are you? Good seeing you indeed. Sammy Valdez at TikTok says, do you believe Tesla, the real maker, made 505 miles at 70 miles an hour in 1899? It's possible. It's very possible indeed. Technology has changed. As a matter of fact, talking to Jay Leno not too long ago, he shared with me that back in the day in the 1800s, late 1800s, there were pretty much 33% were EVs being sold, 33% of petrol cars, 33% were steam. And the problem with steam is that it kind of takes a while to be able to build up that pressure to be able to use it, but the steam was very nice and very clean. EVs were very nice, but kind of had that stigma of being cars for ladies because you don't have to worry about cranking, right? And the petrol ones were kind of okay, but you have to remember to always start the vehicle, retard the timing, crank it, and then start again. And people were getting hurt. One person actually died from blood poisoning when a crank hit his face after breaking his wrist because the timing was not retarded. And then came the event of a starter. I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman who kind of initiated or created the starter system for petrol cars. And that kind of made petrol kind of take off quite nicely because you couldn't really charge things much. you couldn't have charging stations, and DC kind of was the way to go back in the day. And that kind of made things a little difficult. So petrol cars had a 100-year start over EVs, and now that's starting to come full circle, and EVs are becoming more and more popular. And it's amazing how many EVs are being sold nowadays globally. And I'm ashamed to say China's really leading the charge when it comes to EV technology and what they're doing in terms of electric vehicles and making things go very well, you know? I think I'd rather have two alternatives on my 1224 Bisimoto battery charger, another alternator with 2140 volts. I don't know what 12 volt, and I don't know what that means, Sammy. Please share some more insights. Being kind of vague, I'm here to help and to supply some insight, but please let me know, because I'd love to be able to talk to you and benefit. Ethanol are so clean, says stuffinization. I agree, and I like that. The weird thing is that ethanol, especially in the United States, being a pure alcohol, could be consumed, and it can incur an alcohol tax. So to prevent people from consuming pump ethanol, it's added about 15 or so % of gasoline, which I'm trying to get away from. Regular petrol is added to it so people can consume it. And that also adds to some of the not so clean nature of ethanol as a fuel. And above and beyond that, kind of supports fossil fuels, right? Which is not very renewable. Hydrogen fuel cell didn't go far. Sad, says King Oluwe. It is coming. So I talked to some engineers from Toyota recently. I think it was about a week and a half ago, about the Mirai, which is fantastic. And the Mirai was also there this weekend at Electrify Expo. And I do like the concept of hydrogen for using as a fuel cell. And what I mean by fuel cell is it's pretty much an electric vehicle, and hydrogen is used to create electricity to propel that, which is pretty cool, right? I also am a huge advocate of using hydrogen because of the compounds of combustion being just water for internal combustion engines. So when it comes to ICEs, I feel that hydrogen really is the way to go. Fossil fuels are not. Synthetic fuels may be okay, but doesn't have the same caloric content without adding some, how should I say, oxygenates, which also don't need very well to very clean combustion. But hydrogen, I think, is definitely the way to go indeed when it comes to that. David Little says, my Model 3 is the most fun I've had behind the wheel, but it doesn't give me the visceral experiences, sound, smell, and feeling that high-performance petrol cars give. And David, you're right. David from my good friend David, also here on YouTube, you're absolutely correct. But once again, you're comparing a Model 3, which is a factory commuter econobox, to a performance gasoline car. So I wouldn't compare a Model 3 to a Corvette C8, same way I wouldn't compare my K3V to, let's say, something that is similar to, I wouldn't compare my K3V to something that's similar to like a stock Yaris. So imagine if all we drove were, how should I even say, my Ram truck outside. Let's say that was the only vehicle we had access to, or that every diesel or internal combustion was compared to my Dodge truck. That would be really boring, wouldn't it? It would be like, oh my goodness, petrol cars suck. They make noise that's not very appealing to the ears. They're slow and sluggish. They shoot out black smoke sometimes. It wouldn't be a fun thing. So comparing apples to apples would be like what I've done. Taking, let's say, my twin turbo M16 and comparing it to the Mobi, EV Mobi or Mobi X. Or comparing how should I say, maybe a Pagani to something upscale from Rimac. That would be a good one. And if you drive both, you can appreciate both and both really a lot of fun. It's not comparing apples to apples if you're comparing a bone stock car to something else, you know? Good afternoon, the Art Chemist. Thank you so much for joining, appreciate you. Any tuner events you plan on visiting this year, says Dedicated Dad. Yes, I may end up doing something back east around, how should I say? Maybe a Fuel Fest or two, maybe even doing something. That Tuner Evo sounds really good. But right now I'm doing a lot of West Coast events and haven't put anything in paper. If I do say something, I would definitely, if I do plan something, I'll definitely let you know. But at this point, nothing is set in stone yet. PRI I may go to, which is later on in the year in Indy. I think it's more in the November, December timeframe, but I'll definitely put some content out and information around that. And I'd love to be at Tuner Evo indeed, a Dedicated Dad. I'd love to see that. I heard it's a lot of fun. Have you been to any European tracks? If so, which is your favorite? Santa Pod is the only race where I've been to when I was in the UK, and that was pretty cool. But apart from that, when I tend to visit Germany or Italy or any of those countries in Europe, it's kind of an in-out business thing and not enough time for me to go around and take a look at what's happening with, you know, some of the racetracks out there. I haven't had opportunity, but I do need to make time and do that. And Mark, USB, good seeing you. Thank you so much for joining. Sven Haas, 1775, is asking, how do you like the Audi e-tron GT? I love it, especially since it shares a lot of components with the Taycan from Porsche. The Audi e-tron GT, in my opinion, actually looks better than the Porsche version. Even though it's, I mean, being an Audi, maybe they kind of held back a little bit on the power, but in terms of just sheer aesthetic, e-tron GT, absolutely gorgeous. I like it a lot. Let's see here. EVs are very welcome, says Texas Michael, and I support, but I can't be a direct replacement for fuel. I didn't see it as a direct replacement. I just always felt bad about my drag car, which is right here, running on C16. I knew what I was putting in the atmosphere. I didn't like that. And I have very fond memories only from our atmosphere, not anything else, but during the pandemic in the greater LA area, it was really, really clean out here. It was absolutely beautiful and clean. The air was spectacular. I could see the mountains. There was no smog. And that was only because there were no cars on the road. And I yearn for that. I just do. And I don't see any removal of fun. If anything, the performance EVs I build have a different kind of feel to them, where I feel better connected to the tarmac. You get more tire feedback, almost visceral, more braking feedback. You can hear the pedal, you know, the pebbles hit the ground. It has this supercharged whine in the background. It's pretty cool. And before you look down, you're like, oh my God, I'm doing 100 miles an hour. It's really cool. That's maybe the only thing that I'm not used to is the disconnect from sound and how fast you're going, because you can mess around and have a lot of fun. And then I keep talking about the Plaid, which is amazing, right? So I have this 2023 Tesla Model S Plaid that I drove today, and I couldn't build a street petrol car that goes that fast on street tires and is street legal. It's just not possible. It's not possible. Even with the weight of those cars, it's really freaking quick. For me to hit 6 O's in the 8th mile, that is absolutely fantastic, you know? Das Nines Only says, oh Dave, how do you say that properly? Day Nines Only, Da Nines Only says, BC, you're a legend on the Honda scene, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The best is definitely yet to come. Sleeperverse Flash saying, alternative fuel sources lead to growth. Their narrative switch is the problem. Yes, I agree with you completely, Sleeperverse Flash. I don't think people should be forced to do it. There are all these mandates in California where I think as soon as 2030, is it 2025 to 2030, manufacturers will not be allowed to sell petrol-based cars in the state. So if you wanted a new car, it would have to be an EV. And if you wanted something petrol, it had to be used or from another state. And that kind of gives people really a bad taste in their mouth when you force them to do things. I, for one, I have made it my crusade to educate and assist people in understanding that there's really cool opportunities with EVs. From time to time, I do enjoy driving a petrol car. It's almost sometimes I'm like, oh my God, it's just the smell I don't like, or the fact that I have to deal with emissions. If it's something that's newer than 1975, ends up being a bit of a headache. So that being said, there's always this opportunity. DA9s only. Okay, got it, DA9s only. Appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Hello, Kyle Watson from TikTok. Thank you for joining indeed. Good afternoon, the art chemists and everyone in the chat. Appreciate your presence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dude, love that you still have the Civic Wagon, says, how do you say that? Bodega Outside. Thank you so much. I still have the Odyssey too. It was really shocking when I, Jonathan, and the kids had the opportunity to have the Odyssey at the most recent Fuel Fest at the Irwindale Speedway this weekend. And people really loved it. It was really cool to see the wagon out there. I mean, not the wagon, but the Odyssey. And yeah, still have it indeed. This is Michael. And by the way, Michael, I really appreciate your interaction. This is why we do this, to interact and have a good chat, you know? And thank you so much, Dylan EF, saying Civic Wagon is a legend. Appreciate it indeed. What I hate about EVs is the time you have to wait to charge on a heavy use or daily drive, 1 hour and wait if there's not a station available. I, for one, do most of my charging at home. It's almost like with my cell phone as well. If I'm running low and I have to go to the airport, I have to plug in and wait forever. It's kind of annoying. But honestly, TSS Michael, I don't know what your personal experience has been, but with my K3V, which is something I drive every weekend pretty much, and I get about 150 mile range, maybe less if I'm having a lot of fun. If I'm somewhere and I fast charge, I'm done in 32 minutes. So by the time I go use the restroom or go to sit down to eat and order something, it's fully charged. The wait is not that long. I see a lot of Tesla stations where they're very packed because people are waiting in line with Teslas. Maybe they have free supercharging. But with companies like Blink Charging, who are one of our partners, you have EVgo, you have Electrify America, you have all these other charging infrastructure which continues to improve. It's really not a big deal. And the fact that I'm at home, I think this year alone, I've only been to a public charging station probably less than a dozen times, of which 4 of those out of a dozen when I went to Vegas and came back. So that being said, it's not really an issue. I can see it be a problem for people with apartment complexes where the landlords or the owners don't allow for charging stations to be employed. But if you're at home, there's no excuse. If you have a washer and dryer and you have opportunities to have other high voltage appliances in your house, there's no excuse for you to be able to do what you do with your phone. You get home, you plug in your phone, you plug in your car, and that's what I do. And it's been just absolutely fantastic. Very little need for me to be able to do that, you know? King Olawale says, great, do you have a recommendation for BMS? Yes, I have, and I did mention it earlier, but I like the Orion BMS too. Orion has a very long-standing relationship with Toyota, so Toyota EVs and hybrids are extremely reliable and they work together very nicely. And I, for one, use that with great success. And it allows me the opportunity to do wonderful things in terms of fail-safes and safety management of my batteries, and also communicating properly with my engine control units or motor control units to make sure that things stay happy and that the commands are obeyed properly, you know? When a car is pro-tuned, I'm sure you agree it runs cleaner than stock. Sleeper versus flash, I respectfully disagree with you. I do. Manufacturers are held to a very high standard when it comes to emissions, especially with recent ultra-low emission vehicles. When people tend to tune cars to create more power, even when they're tuned by pros, whether it's a remote tune, flash that's remote, which I'm not a big fan of, or even on the dyno, the way to create more power is typically to add more fuel and to advance the timing, which in the tailpipe typically leads to not so clean mixtures, especially when performance people tend to go with high flow cats or no catalysts at all. So once again, sleeper versus flash, I respectfully disagree with you. The OEMs are held to a very high standard. Forgive me for being redundant, but I must reiterate. And they're very, very, very particular to whereby even when you put a cold air intake, sometimes it doesn't allow your vehicle to pass emissions. You have tailpipe emissions that are worse than factory, let alone, and it's not something you can just easily tune by what you run leaner, it's not ideal, you run rich, it's not ideal. I respectfully disagree with you. I disagree with you. NOxes and CO2, yes, I agree. Oxides of nitrogen and oxides of sulfur are also an issue too. So I agree with you indeed, Sammy Valdez. It's not a fun thing as well. So once again, we're trying to create an environment where we can still have fun. And if I had the power, if I was in government and had the opportunity to influence, I would have the kind of notion where you could run, you know, ethanol-based fuels, which is much cleaner and renewable to some extent. You can use biomass. Corn is not a very good, in my opinion, yield opportunity for ethanol. But maybe there's some subsidy, some government stuff going on with farmers, but even regular biomass could be used, grass, literally grass could be used, trees, whatever the case may be, could be used to create ethanol. And I feel that if we are allowed the opportunity to make more power and use ethanol-based fuels, if our emissions are equal to or better than factory, it should be just allowed. And then when it comes to EV, we should be able to do whatever we desire to do and pick it up if we want to. If we don't, if we're slow to adopt, that's fine. I just think we shouldn't lose sight of cleaner air and having programs to allow us to do it better, which is pretty nice indeed. So that's just my small 2 cents when it comes to that. The world isn't falling off a cliff because of the car's emissions. I remember this all kind of started because a truck rolled coal on EPA rep in traffic. It's more deeper than that. And sleeper versus flash, there's even a bigger issue here above and beyond. Cars emissions are pretty bad, but one of the worst emissions we have are with maritime vessels, meaning ships. They're unregulated, they dump, they use really horrible crude oil compounds, and they just bellow it into the atmosphere. And that's really bad. But once again, sleeper versus flash, this is not hearsay, it's not secondhand information, it's not third-hand information, it's not my gut feeling, it's literally what I saw here in the LA basin during the pandemic when people were not allowed to drive. It was beautiful in LA. The LA basin was gorgeous. It was clear, the air was better, there was no crazy brown, you should see in the morning, brown hue, where you can't see the mountains. It was just, the air smelled better. I'm telling you, as much as I love having fun like the next guy, it really sucks. It's not very clean for us at all. And I don't get the argument around how it is great. It is not. It just isn't. But there are more things. And honestly, we are gradually falling off a cliff. It is not a good thing. Not at all. And, you know, it is. Blue Top Performance. Hello, brother. All the way in Florida. H22. Good seeing you indeed. Says congratulations for the win in Fuel Fest. Thank you so much. I did speak in Fuel Fest, but my win was at the Electrify Expo where we won Best Vendor Vehicle. So thank you so much. I'm sure my team at Toyo will be very proud for what you just shared. Thank you, thank you, thank you indeed. Can you turbocharge my bicycle? Says RMP Turbo. Not at this time. We can do some other fun stuff, but not turbocharging your bicycle. When will you come to Germany? Says Van Has 1975. I'm trying to see if I can make it this year. I have so much going on here with the team and I. It's kind of very difficult, but I'm trying to see what I can do to make things happen. Lambda Menace, who I just saw at Fuel Fest this weekend. Thank you so much for joining, brother. And for those of you who don't know Lambda Menace, what an amazing builder. He is a man after my own heart. And what I mean by that is, not only does he care for going fast and doing it very elegantly, he loves making his cars look as good as he pays attention to the speed opportunities for them. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I may have missed your question here, but have you heard that the state wants to tax California drivers 30 cents for every mile you drive? Also, they're trying to pass a bill for future cars to not exceed the speed limit. So yeah, Lambda, so what I did study this bill very nicely. And they are putting together a process, which they even had me sign up for it, where the roads are getting kind of crazy and they do want to charge people either for driving, or they may increase the tax at our DMV registration, or they may have the opportunity to pass that on to petrol or gasoline taxes, which is already high in California. They want to add more to that. But what they're asking for in terms of the speed limit is they just want to make mandatory what some OEMs are doing already, where it alerts you if you are 15 to 20 miles an hour above the speed limit. There's no notion to stop you or slow you down. It's just to alert you of that issue. And Mazda already has it in the cars. Most recently, I had the Mazda CX-90, which I drove for about a week or so. It's got an inline six 3.3 liter turbo hybrid. And when you do exceed the speed limit, on the screen has the speed limit sign, let's say 65, and a yellow circle, or I would say maybe rectangle, comes up around the speed limit sign and tells you. And I didn't go further to see there's something audible, but they're trying to do a visual and audible alert to hopefully get people to slow down. So it's not as dire as I've seen some influencers try to make it. I saw someone on TikTok recently where he had the opportunity to explore this thing and kind of took it further, maybe to get more clicks or get people to argue or talk about it in the comments. But looking at the bill, it's not that crazy. It's literally something that OEMs are doing already, where they just kind of let you know. I think Tesla is doing it as well. I think they are. But yeah, it's not as bad as people try to make it to be. Oh my goodness, Stoned Ape Climbing. We used to do embroidery for you in Hacienda Heights. Yes. Thank you so much. You did some stuff with my racing suits. I remember that. I don't know what you're doing nowadays, but you did a great job. I still have those racing suits. So thank you so much for really taking care of me all those years ago. Thank you for joining also, and for being an advocate here on TikTok. What's up? Essential Garage 6. Thank you so much for joining. Juan J is asking, what's that blue car behind me? It's my 1990 Honda Civic Wagon, all-wheel drive, has a lot of CRV components with a K-Series transmission that's sequential courtesy of Quaife, with an action clutch mated to a K24 Z7 head and Z3 bottom end, fully built with a Garrett G-Series turbo. So it's pretty good. It's pretty fun indeed, you know? What, do you think the Tesla Roadster is going to do 182 at 8.2 at a quarter? It's possible, especially if, and Sammy Valdez is asking this, especially if the thruster issue does come to fruition, as our good friend Elon tends to say. So we'll see. Are those spinner hubcaps that has Dominic on the wagon? No. Forgive me, they're not spinner hubcaps. That is known as a turbofan. And just to give you an idea of what concept of turbofan is, it is a very cool disc device that does a good job in evacuating air from the undercarriage of a car outwards, and it cools down brakes and also can create a bit of a suction or downforce mechanism into the bottom of a car, which is nice. So in this case, Honda in British Touring did this on some of their Grand Touring cars, the wagons and some of the cores that they had, because they weren't allowed to have aggressive wings. So putting in the back wheel helped create a vacuum situation, which then sucked down the car and allowed for better adhesion to the tarmac. So yes, it is a turbofan, not a spinner. Doesn't move, it's a fixed device with some aerofoil events inside that help evacuate air. And it's a pretty good thing. I think it was banned after a while, but you see a lot of Group 5 racing, Porsches and Audis and BMWs also had it on their wheels as well to help cool down the brakes and help with some downforce. The legend itself says, Rob17, thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see here. Oh my God, it's almost time to go. But yeah, so that's my thought. I still, team and friends and family from across the globe, don't still understand the amazing hate there is for EVs. I get the dislike of being able to force people or how people feel about being forced to convert. I get that. I, for one, when I was a detractor for EVs, it was me just regurgitating what I heard from my customers and what I read. And David Little, who is here on YouTube, was trying to get me out of that funk, and successfully, to some extent, little by little, did that. But I still don't understand, especially after driving it. It is amazing. And I get it. We as humans are not big on change. But I'm telling you guys, have an open mind. Let's have fun. Let's all get along and have a great time and do what we love. Because hot rodding is not dead. Because we're trying to be pigeonholed into an opportunity where we're villainized for modifying cars, let's look for greater ways to use hydrogen and electric to be able to still have fun and make cars our own and just, you know, enjoy life, indeed. All right, guys, it was a slice of heaven. I'm going to go ahead and grab a bite to eat. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining on this Tech Tuesday. I look forward to seeing you here next time, maybe in a different location. But in the meantime, stay safe, take care of yourself, and have a blast. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye, guys.